I have always been a person inspired throughout my life. I love reading and sending inspirational quotes to others when I write out my cards. Jesus is a central motivator when I am not needing of his grace, which of course I do being human. I think we have the amazing opportunity to be reborn here at Valley Forge Presbyterian Church with this new vision for our church property, space, and ourselves. I believe every birth, every child is a miracle from God. I am inspired every day to get up and give my best shot, thanking God for the true gift of another day, another beginning, so to speak. This can be another beginning for us, just as we as individuals evolve every day. Going from birth through the stages of our life until we pass, we can make the most of our lives with God guiding our paths. We live every day in hopes of learning something new about ourselves, about each other. I have been inspired by so many in this church: James and Flossie Tanis, Bob and Charlotte Jordan, Ivan Hansen and Jeff Mann on youth mission trips, serving when they didn't even have a youth participating on the trips. Bob and Barb Beck with Lynn guiding our children for so many Christmas pageants here. Lorraine Hawk weeding and planting flowers to provide more beauty around the church grounds. All of the elders and deacons over the years. Most recently, Eileen and Dave Wilkie working for the Upper Marion area community cupboard so it might flourish as it has. So many giving of themselves for the sake of the other. Our church can be transformed into a place of giving by providing space for affordable housing, as well as space for God's children to gather and grow together in a safe space where love surrounds them every day. We can gather and grow as well as we continue worship in our sanctuary with joy, knowing we are being true disciples of Jesus, not only by our presence, but by our actions. Be the change as Jesus charges us to do, doing his work, providing love and peace for so many who might not be accustomed to those precious gifts as we have been. It has been an honor to be a part of this committee. We have gone through some difficult times of discernment, but I hope you will all see that we can make a bigger impact on the community by embracing this plan. We can all win together as God holds our hands. I would rather flow as a spring than stagnate and die here at Valley Forge Presbyterian Church.
Four years ago, a group of members were gathered and formed the Long-Term Working Vision Group. The task of the group was to prayerfully look at the long-term plans for Valley Forge Presbyterian Church. What a monumental task. Many hours of Zoom and discernment and lively discussion and thought-provoking readings, studying our past, our current situation, and where we are called by God for our future. At each and every step, God was there, opening our eyes and our ears and our hearts to where we are called to go as people of God. Throughout our journey, there were many times when a door would close, but God would open a window. Times when we realized we were over our heads. Someone would cross the path of a committee member and we would have a new direction. And as we started to narrow in on a workable plan, everything seemed to start to fall into place. Michael Seabright, who was with us from the early days, continued to be a wonderful resource to what is truly possible. And when we struggled with how to finance such a large project, Suzanne and her team have offered an expertise for fundraising that has been the answer to so many prayers. I'm certain that God's hands have been on this project from our initial meeting. We are called to serve our brothers and sisters, and I am confident they were going to be doing just that. We have a rich and proud history at Valley Forge, a history of helping those in need. We have been blessed with a very large facility that has grown too large for us. What a wonderful opportunity we have to use what we have to help so many of our brothers and sisters. With God's help and guidance, every inch of our church will now be used to offer so much to so many, from the hungry to people struggling with housing, to little children cared for in a sanctuary by loving and caring people. God has given us so much here at Valley Forge. And as we are told in the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48, to whom much is given, much is expected. I see God most clearly in our proposed housing project. So many people struggle with housing for a variety of reasons far beyond their control. Imagine being an 18-year-old young woman or young man in foster care and being told that they're on your own. How is that even possible? Their years in foster care certainly a challenge, and now facing the unknown of surviving on their own. By supplying a safe place for them to live, we can invite these young people into our community of faith, offering support in so many ways. A new day is dawning at Valley Forge, a dawn that will be a blessing by reaching out and helping our community, by offering housing to those in need of a home, by continuing to support the faithful work of UMAC, and by offering affordable child programs that help the young families in our surrounding neighborhoods. With God's help, truly everything is possible. Thank you.
In the fall of 2018, I was about to retire and close down the business I had run for 20 years. My family and friends were very concerned with what I would do with having so much time on my hands. Tim and Eileen quickly answered that question. I was honored when Tim asked me to join the Long-Term Vision Working Group. He explained that our task was to devise a plan for the future of Valley Forge Presbyterian Church that was both financially sustainable and included mission components. At the same time, Tim and Eileen asked me if I would consider being the treasurer of the Upper Marion Area Community Cupboard. I said yes to both requests, and the last 3 years have been the most rewarding of my almost 40 years as a church member. It's been a long and winding journey, but I am very enthusiastic about our proposal for the future, and following are the 4 reasons for my optimism. Number 1, provide financial stability for our church into the future. Since I've been on the finance committee for quite a few years, I'm acutely aware of the fact that a small number of donors support 50% of the church's budget. It is unknown how long we can count on their financial support. If we do not find additional sources of income and/or reduce expenses, we may be forced to close our doors. Our proposal to convert the CE building into self-supporting apartments would both remove the expense of maintaining this building and add an additional source of income to the church's budget. I'm very comfortable with our ability to raise the funds needed for construction in the form of grants with the help of our consultants. Number 2, allow for the continued operation and possible growth of the cupboard. When I took over as treasurer of the cupboard in November 2018, we were a small operation feeding 20 to 25 families per week. Due to the significant expansion of our activities, fueled by the ongoing pandemic and Hurricane Ida, the cupboard now requires the entire fellowship hall to support our operation, where we now feed 100 to 120 families each week. When I see how much we have and how little our patrons have, I'm overwhelmed by the opportunity to be part of this vital mission doing God's work for our less fortunate neighbors. Number 3, provide affordable housing for at-risk individuals and families. The conversion of the CE building into apartments will provide much needed housing for young adults, as well as provide affordable housing for local residents. The current response to the devastating effects of Hurricane Ida on Bridgeport residents has brought the need for affordable housing sharply into focus for me. We were able to find and pay for temporary housing for 88 families. While some families have been able to return to their homes, There's still about 57 families in local hotels, many of whom will have to find new housing. The problem is a total lack of available, affordable housing in our area. While this project is not in time to help the current situation, it's a step in the right direction and hopefully can be a model for future housing of this type. And the fourth benefit, it will provide affordable full-time daycare for pre-K children. This component of our plan speaks to me the most because I have a personal connection. 4 members of our group became first-time grandparents during our journey, and I think they can relate, along with me, to the importance of this proposal. Not only do working families today require full-time daycare in a safe and nurturing environment, but they need to be able to afford this daycare. Hearing how much full-time daycare costs for 2 children, we're thankful to be able to care for our grandchildren 2 days a week. This allows our son and daughter-in-law to take advantage of a part-time, less expensive daycare option. But I know how unique our situation is, as very few working families have this luxury. There is certainly a critical need for affordable full-time daycare for pre-K children, and I look forward to playing a significant role in implementing this program. I hope you agree that our proposal for the future of Valley Forge Presbyterian Church makes financial sense and supports 3 much-needed local mission initiatives: feeding the hungry, providing affordable housing, and providing affordable full-time care and education for pre-K children. Thank you.
During those first meetings of our long-term vision working group that started back in 2018, what stood out and has stayed with me is the need for Valley Forge Presbyterian to have a revenue stream in order to pay for some really serious future repairs and to maintain the regular operation of the church. That concern has informed me through many discussions and considerations of some tough and difficult decisions. Have you noticed that whenever you're considering a major purchase, such as a car, you become more aware of ads and cars on the road that match the make, model, and color of the one you are considering? So have I noticed these last 3 years, several articles about the need for more affordable housing, or about Presbyterian churches with small budgets and small congregations finding their place and purpose in their communities. The most recent were just these past 2 months. In the November-December issue of Presbyterians Today, the headline reads, "The Small Church, a Gift to Its Community." The examples of churches and congregations resembled Valley Forge Pres. As the numbers in pews are dwindling across all denominations, there are more small churches in terms of congregation size and budget within the Presbyterian Church USA who are finding new ways to witness to the gospel and to care for their communities. One church provides monthly dinners. Another picks up teenagers who need a ride home from their after-school jobs when their shift ends late at night. Due to the aging of their congregation, one church decided to go to and support local struggling restaurants rather than gather in their own worship space for dinners. An added bonus, there was no need to lug out tables to set up or worry about cleanup afterwards. In the Sunday, October 24th issue of the Times, there was a lengthy article about Grace Congregational Church in Harlem, New York City. One could easily substitute that church name with Valley Forge Presbyterian. It's a church full of memories. It's a church where members or family members were married or children were christened, where a loved one's funeral or memorial service was held. According to the church pastor, the Reverend Nigel Pierce, the church could not survive long-term in what was coming in through the offering plates on Sunday mornings. The congregation had grown smaller. So members came up with a vision for their future. They worked with a real estate developer and came up with a plan that would keep them afloat. The plan was for a modern complex that combined a new church with dozens of affordable housing units to benefit struggling families who could not afford the rising rents in their neighborhood. The caption under one of the photos accompanying the article read, "Is a church is building, or is it the people who worship there?" Does this sound familiar? Sadly for this Harlem congregation and the point of this particular article, the church is being challenged by preservationists who want to block the plans developed by the congregation. Bottom line, churches in all parts of the country are reinventing themselves. Churches are changing. We're not alone. Hurricane Ida and the effect it has had on our neighboring community and neighbors in Bridgeport have only highlighted the need for affordable housing, which we've heard about, is pretty much non-existent in Montgomery County. Bridgeport and Norristown, for the most part, provide the area's affordable housing. Now, post-Hurricane Ida, dozens of families are displaced, and for many, options to return to rents that are marginally affordable are slim to none. While our building conversion may not be immediate for these families, the option of affordable childcare is on the horizon. And we as a congregation can take pride in knowing that in a relatively short period of time, we will be able to provide an affordable housing option, whether it's for teens transitioning out of foster care or for families in transition, such as post-Hurricane Ida, or in other situations requiring temporary transitional housing. Yes, there are tough decisions to consider, but the options being presented by our long-term vision working group are very much on point for Valley Forge Presbyterian. For us to continue to be a vital participant in our community and surrounding communities, as well as generated that needed income stream for years to come. As a congregation who cares, it's not our building. It's not the pews. It's the people worshiping in it. It is our reaching outward with our presence with the food cupboard or child care or transitional housing. And it is that commitment to love, to care for, and to walk alongside our sisters and brothers in the community that will define us as a congregation that lives and represents the kingdom of God on earth.
Let me begin by saying that I'm totally in favor of the missional goals of this project, as spoken to by the others. In June 2019, Valley Forge committed to join the Presbytery of Philadelphia's recommendation to be a Matthew 25 church. Our proposed project is consistent with that decision, and it will allow Valley Forge to be constantly involved with our neighbors and an example of what a small congregation can do for the least of these. By this project, our entire facility will be active throughout the week. Think of that. My focus is here is to talk a bit further about the financial aspects of this project. At the first town hall in December 2019, we thought that we might have to take on a large mortgage to pay for the renovation of the chapel and the CE building. While this mortgage would have been paid for through the rents on the apartments, the net effect would be a modest return to the church, which we still thought could form the basis of a building fund for future capital needs. Now, we have been led by God's grace to people who know the process and will help us obtain all the funding we need through grants. We already have $500,000 committed. This means we will not have to take out $1 million mortgage. The return to the church, therefore, will be greater, and importantly, will stabilize our church's operating budget for the years ahead. As a trustee of the presbytery, I do quite a bit of work with other churches, some of whom are in serious financial situations. Sadly, some of these churches are forced to dissolve, and their communities lose those churches' presence and ministry. As Kathy has previously mentioned, and as you know, today Valley Forge is overly reliant on a relatively few donors for a majority of its operating income. The time will come, and I can tell you that it is beginning, when some of these donors will no longer be able to donate. Unless others step up, the church's finances and therefore its survival will be in jeopardy. So my message to you is not only are the mission goals exciting, but we need this project in order to remain here at the corner of Town Center in Prince Frederick, being God's present in this part of our world. Do not be afraid.
Hi, I'm not going to talk about the cover because I feel like I covered everything I need to cover with that in the last few weeks, and you all know how I feel about it. I would just want to talk about the beginning. When this committee began our task, we read a book called Autopsy of a Deceased Church. It was written by someone whose job it is to help churches who are dying and analyze what happened to them after they have to close. It was a depressing book, but very eye-opening, because we saw pieces of our church in almost every single chapter. It also had glimmers of hope that maybe if we made some changes now, the church did not have to die. Those of us that are not on the financial committee got to hear and finally understand the fears that the financial committee have been wrestling with for the past 5 to 10 years as they struggle with the looming cost of aging buildings and the loss of income when members leave. None of the changes we are proposing were easy for us, since we all raised our children in these churches, in this church, and nobody ever wants to change. The book ends with no one wants his or her church to die. No one desires to let go of the church he loves. No one wants to lose the church to which he gave so many years. What we are saying as a committee is that what we're doing what we can to now to prevent that from happening. It will be an adjustment for everyone. But if we try to come to it with an open mind, we may find that we like it even better than it was before.
Like you are I can barely speak. You're incredible.
Oh,
Incredible. I can't believe what you all just did. It's really amazing. I feel so blessed to have been here for this.